Amateur radio news and notes. For Friday, May 15th, 2026, I'm Ed Kavick, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, Dayton Hamvention starts today, May 15th through the 17th, 2026. QRP Amateur Radio Club International's 4 days in May happened, and we are going to recap it. Also, Elecraft announced a new AX4 antenna. Yaesu announces their System Fusion 3 and DR3X repeaters. We're going to talk about some MVARC Nets on the air, see what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, talk about some upcoming contests, also take a look at interesting online radio content. As always, all the links to the reference content can be found in the show notes or at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. Today kicks off the 2026 edition of the Dayton Hamvention at the Greene County Fair and Expo Center in Xenia, Ohio. Dayton Hamvention is the biggest hamfest in the world, with last year's attendance at 36,814 attendees. Hamvention starts today, May 15th, 2026, from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. and continues Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This year's theme is Radio Adventure, and as always, there'll be a ton of vendors, tailgate sellers, and an extensive lineup of forums. Amateur Radio News and Notes is on the scene in Xenia to report the latest developments. I'll be walking around on Friday and Saturday at the fairgrounds, so if you're going this year and you see me, definitely say hello. For more information about Dayton Hamvention, including lists of vendors and scheduled forums, visit hamvention.org. Yesterday, Thursday, May 14th, 2026, the QRP Amateur Radio Club International's 4 Days in May conference took place in Fairborn, Ohio. This year, there were a lot of great talks. Harold KE6TI started out the day with a talk about his journey into the world of homebrewing radios from a young novice to his career in electronics. Next up was Anthony K8ZT, who reminded us that life is not too short for QRP, with a talk that gave lots of tips on how to succeed in QRP operations, and his talk can be found at a link in the show notes. Then we were treated to a fascinating talk by Jonathan, KM4CFT, about the design philosophy of his CFT1 QRP rig that discussed his objectives and methods to create and release his popular radio. The next talk was from Thomas, K4SWL, about how he and his community in Swannanoa, North Carolina, dealt with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene using amateur radio and the power of community. To see his coverage, check out the link in the show notes. His talk highlighted the resilience and resourcefulness of the community and provided some practical tips about how to be better prepared for future disasters. Jerry AC4BT had a talk about some of his methods he uses to build his CW skills. Stuart G3YSX gave a talk about how vibe coding using artificial intelligence is changing amateur radio with some practical examples and information. Al AC8GY and Jack W8TEE showed their clever magnetic loop antenna controller, which allows for the automatic tuning of the notoriously difficult to tune magnetic loop antennas. Their result was impressive, and they've released their code as open source so you can build your own. And last but not least, Ross VK1UN showed us how he was able to design antenna tuners for the 160 meter, 630 meter, 2200 meter, and 8900 hertz bands to allow him to have his QRP signals received thousands of miles away through the ingenious engineering and circuit modeling. Then, in this evening, Ashar Farhan, VU2ESC, gave a talk about his LARCset 40-meter transceiver kits that allow builders to get on the air for around $30. The evening was capped off with vendor night with many QRP vendors in attendance, including Adam, K6ARK, Pactena, N6ARA Electronics, Halibut Electronics, Tufton, HF Signals, Spooltena, Podacat, QRPme, DX Engineering, and many more. It was a busy and fun-filled day in Fairborn, Ohio. Just ahead of Dayton Hamvention, Elecraft announced the next release in their AX line of compact antennas, the AX4. The new antenna maintains a compact form factor while allowing 100 watts of output on CW and single sideband and 50 watts on digital modes. It's designed to be clamped to a table or a bench or put on a tripod with a 1/4-20 mount, and has a longer 8-foot whip that boasts a 6 dB gain improvement over their previous 4-foot whips. The antenna is resonant on 7, 10, 14, and 21 megahertz. With the use of an antenna tuner, the antenna can be used from 40 meters through 10 meters. The BL3 Balun unit keeps RF off the feed line and is an essential part of the 100-watt power handling capacity of the antenna. The unit weighs 15 ounces. The main unit is 6.7 inches long. The whip is 13 inches long when it's collapsed, and it comes with a bag. As we go to press, Elecraft has not announced a price, but they did have one on hand at FDIM's vendor night. For more information about the antenna and to sign up for their waitlist, visit elecraft.com/products/AX4. John Kruk and 9 UPC announced on Yaesu USA's YouTube channel that Yaesu will be announcing the latest version of their System Fusion system, version 3, at Dayton Hamvention today. The new version is fully backwards compatible with existing radios, and details about the new capabilities in version 3 will be discussed in more detail at Hamvention today. Also announced were the two new repeater systems, the DR3XV and the DR3XU. The V version transmits on 2 meters with an increased output power of 85 watts, and the U version transmits on 70 centimeters with increased power of 65 watts. The radios are rated for continuous duty cycle and implement the new features of the Yaesu System Fusion 3. The modulation method remains the same C4FM with automatic mode selection, but an added feature is the inclusion of their ASP or audio signal processor functionality seen in some of their newest VHF/UHF rigs, which they claim will increase receive capabilities and signal intelligibility in weaker signals. They also mention an interference evasion system that purports to deal with intentional interference and reroute radios to an alternate frequency until the interfering signal disappears. Additional details are forthcoming at today's Hamvention. For the full podcast announcement, visit the link in the show notes. And now let's talk about some MVARC Nets on the air. The 2-meter FM net happens Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on the repeater, immediately followed by the 2-meter digital net on Yaesu System Fusion C4 FM. The MVARC slow-speed CW roundtable happens on Saturday and Sunday mornings at 7:30 a.m. at 3.565 megahertz, and is immediately followed by the MVARC Cherry Tree net on Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time at 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where we always have a great conversation, and you're always welcome to join us. And now let's take a look at what is happening with DX. There will be a lot of DX on the air this week. Stations on the air include Galapagos, Western Sahara, Rodriguez Island, Kenya, Burkina Faso, French Polynesia, Mauritius, Corsica, Iceland, Greenland, St. Kitts and Nevis, Thailand, and Tonga. A calendar of DX expeditions can be found at NG3K's announced DX operations list at ng3k.com. Now it's time for a solar activity update. As we go to press, the solar flux index was 106 and the estimated sunspot number was 60, with 4 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has decreased. Solar activity has been at low levels in the last 24 hours. The geomagnetic field has been at quiet to unsettled levels in the last 24 hours, and the KP index reached 3 yesterday. The solar wind peaked at 496 kilometers per second. Solar activity is predicted to be at low levels with a chance of M-class flares today through Sunday. The geomagnetic field is forecast to be at active to major storm levels today and at unsettled to minor storm levels on Saturday and Sunday. The chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is at 5% today through Sunday. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are possible with a predicted probability of 40% today, 30% Saturday, and 25% Sunday. R3 or greater blackouts are unlikely, with a 5% chance predicted through Sunday. It remains a fantastic time for amateurs to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see D-layer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, visit the NOAA DRAP page, and to see real-time maximum usable frequency or MUF and critical frequency or FOF2 information from Radio Sun data, visit prop.kc2g.com. Now let's take a look at some upcoming contests. This weekend brings the UNDX contest, the NZART Sangster Shield contest, the His Majesty of Spain contest on CW, the EUPSK DX contest, the Arkansas QSO Party, the Feldhell Sprint, the Baltic contest, and the Run for the Bacon QRP contest. As always, the K1USN SSTs, the MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And now it's time to take a look at some interesting online radio content. As always, all the links for everything we're about to discuss are in the show notes and at our Substack. at MVARC.substack.com. Yaesu USA announces System Fusion 3 and the DR3X repeaters. Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW, discusses recent solar weather. Dave, G3LRC, takes the Flex Radio Aurora out to the field. Mark, KD7DTS, takes a K6ARK dipole to the summit for Soda Fun. Josh, KI6NAZ, briefs you on what you should know about Dayton Hamvention. Thomas, K4SWL, takes a look at some new pressure panels for the Elecraft KH1 and activates POTA, and he also takes a look at some custom accessories for the Elecraft KH1 and also activates POTA on that one as well. Well, that is it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2 Echo Charlie. Thanks, as always, for joining us. We hope you have a great week ahead, and maybe we'll even see you here in Dayton. Until then, best 73, and we look forward to seeing you next week.